All right, today we're going to unpack a really powerful and honestly kind of unsettling idea. It's a theory that helps explain everything from office politics all the way to some of history's darkest moments. We're talking about Rene Girard's theory of the scapegoat. It all boils down to this one fundamental question, and I bet you've seen this play out in your own life. When things go south in a group, say at work or even in a whole country, why is there always this incredible pressure to find one single person or one group to blame for absolutely everything?
And this pattern, once you see it, it's everywhere. I mean, think about that one coworker who gets thrown under the bus for a failed project, or the politician who becomes the lightning rod for every single national problem. And what about the massive online pile-ons we see every single day? It even goes back to the grim history of witch hunts. It's just this deeply human and, yeah, deeply troubling thing we do.
So, to figure out why this happens, Rene Girard says we need to look under the hood at the secret engine that drives pretty much all of our social lives: desire.
And this brings us to his core idea, something called mimetic desire. Now, we all like to think our desires are totally our own, right? That they come from deep inside us. But Girard's theory, it suggests something pretty radical, that we actually learn what to want by copying other people. I mean, think about the latest smartphone. Do you really want it just for the new features? Or is it because it's the hot new thing everyone else wants? That's mimetic desire. It's not individual, it's social.
Okay, so what happens when this whole social imitation thing, this copying of desire, spirals out of control? Well, that's where things get really dangerous. It turns simple wanting into something way more volatile. So let's say you and I both want the same thing, but it's because we're copying each other's desire for it. Suddenly, we're not just two people who happen to want something. We instantly become rivals. And what's crazy is the thing we want, it almost doesn't even matter anymore. The main event becomes the rivalry itself.
And this kicks off a really predictable chain reaction. It starts with that simple imitation, right? That quickly turns into competition. Then that competition escalates because more and more people get drawn in and they start copying the rivalry itself. And before you know it, boom, you've got a full-blown mimetic crisis on your hands, where the entire social fabric is at risk of tearing apart.
So the community is now in total chaos. It's basically a war of all against all, and the tension is just unbearable. So how does the group save itself from completely self-destructing? Well, it finds a solution, an unconscious one and a violent one. Think about it. All that anxiety, all that aggression, it's just building and building. It has to go somewhere. The whole group is like a pressure cooker, and it desperately needs a release valve before the whole thing just explodes. And then, almost out of nowhere, something that feels miraculous happens. That chaotic internal mess of all against all just transforms. All of that hostility floating around suddenly converges. It focuses on a single point, creating this brand new, unified dynamic, all against one. And this is the scapegoat mechanism. All of the community's problems, all its rivalries, all its violence, it all gets projected onto one single victim. And by uniting against that victim, by kicking them out or even killing them, the community is suddenly purged of all its conflict. A shocking, sudden peace just descends. Now, I know this sounds completely paradoxical, right? Violence creating order? But Girard's theory argues that this foundational act of collective violence is precisely what creates social order. The peace that comes after the scapegoat is gone feels so profound, so miraculous, that it becomes sacred. So let's break down why this is so weirdly effective. On a psychological level, it's a huge relief. It gives a really simple explanation for super complex problems. It's a neat, tidy story. There was a problem, we punished the cause, and now we have peace. And socially, it's just as powerful. It brings warring groups together against a common enemy. And it often leads to rituals that kind of reenact this whole peacemaking event to try and stop the crisis from happening all over again. So who gets chosen for this terrible role? Well, it's almost never random. Scapegoats are often people who are already marked as different in some way: outsiders, foreigners, minorities. Or they might be vulnerable and weak, which makes them a safe target. But weirdly, it can also be high-status people who become a flashpoint for all that rivalry, making them a really convenient person to blame when things go wrong. Now, of course, like any big sweeping theory, this one isn't without its critics, and it's important we talk about that. For one, it's really hard to test this stuff scientifically. Some people argue it overgeneralizes a bit, trying to apply the same scapegoat lens to every single conflict. It's also been criticized for maybe downplaying our own individual agency, our ability to actually stand up and resist the mob, and it doesn't always explain all the other factors, like economics, that can play a role in who gets picked.
But here's the thing. Whether it's a perfect scientific law or not, this theory gives us an incredibly powerful tool for understanding our world. So let's bring it right into the present. How can we spot this mechanism happening today, right in front of us?
Okay, here are the warning signs. You should get a little wary when you see really complex problems, social, economic, whatever, suddenly getting blamed on one single person or one group. You've got to watch out for those all-against-one narratives that start to take over, especially when everyone seems to suddenly agree, like magic. And pay attention when the whole conversation shifts away from finding real solutions and focuses entirely on punishment.
So what can we actually do about this? Well, we can actively try to break the cycle. The very first step is to question those simple, too good to be true, all-against-one stories. We have to insist on digging deeper, on looking for the complex root causes of problems instead of just latching onto an easy target. It also means we have to actively protect vulnerable and marginalized groups, the ones most likely to become scapegoats. And finally, we have to build better ways to resolve conflict peacefully before it ever gets to that crisis point.
In the end, Girard's theory isn't just some dusty academic idea. It's really a mirror that he holds up to our own social behavior. It gives us the words, the framework, to see a dangerous pattern that just repeats itself over and over again throughout history. So the final question, really, is for you. Now that you can see the mechanism, what are you going to do to help break